Would somebody be the jerk for freaking out on someone after the person refused to move their car, blocking the person's driveway? We'll get into that in a bit, but first, am I the jerk for making my son pay for a new pizza when he didn't save any for the rest of the family? I, female 45, have 2 kids, 14-year-old female and 17-year-old female. My son has high-functioning ASD, and honestly most people cannot tell, but it comes out in certain aspects of his relationships, such as thinking about others, compassion, etc. My son also eats a lot of food, way more than someone for his age. He's not overweight in any way, so the doctors have not considered this a problem. Here comes the problem. For years when we've ordered food, he has neglected to realize that the food we order is for the whole family, not just him. My husband and I both have spoken to him about this multiple times, and usually he just gives half-hearted apologies. We're working on this with his therapist, among other issues he has. On Friday, my daughter had to work after school, so she drove herself there while my son took the bus home. He said he was hungry, so I ordered a pizza and told him to save some for his father and sister. I only took a slice. Usually my daughter doesn't eat much, 1 to 2 slices, and same thing with my husband. This would have left him with 5 slices of a large pizza. About 2 hours later, my daughter comes home and sees the pizza box empty and starts bawling. She usually is not one to complain about food and will usually just make her own food, but she did not have time to eat before work today, and during lunch she was making up a test. So she didn't eat since breakfast. I was furious at my son and deducted the money for a new pizza plus a generous tip to the delivery driver from my son's bank account. My son saw, and now he is ticked. My daughter thought it was the right thing to do, especially when this is about the 3rd time it's happened to her. My son's reasoning is that he doesn't work, so his only sources of income are for his birthday and Christmas, so my daughter should have paid since she has a job. My husband and I are both on board with what I did, but I don't know. Is my son right? Am I the jerk? Update: for everyone saying we are underfeeding him, we have tons of food in the house. The fridge is stocked, we have snacks, ingredients, etc. My son refuses to learn how to cook, even when we've offered him cooking classes. Even without learning to cook, we have boxed pasta, popcorn, bread, vegetables and fruits, rice, etc., all of which require no cooking ability. He simply chose to eat the whole pizza. So personally, I don't think OP really is the jerk here. I would say if they really only do get money from birthdays and Christmas, maybe take a little bit less than the full price of a pizza, because pizza these days are getting shockingly expensive, including the generous tip, and really it doesn't sound like they have all that much money saved up, so it probably does hurt them a lot more even if you take a little amount. But I see this as a great learning tool, not necessarily for just overeating, but for being respectful to your family, being considerate. I mean, OP was pretty darn clear in the intentions here. It's not okay to just disrespect that and say, well, she has a job, she can pay for it anyways and not get any of it anyways. Like, what kind of sense does that make? Little Loki 918 commented, "Not the jerk. Having autism is not an excuse for eating the entire dinner and leaving none for the rest of the family, even after being explicitly told not to do so. Having autism is also not a shield against the natural consequences of his actions. He ate the entire large pizza that was the entire family's dinner, and you had to order another one. It was only fair that he paid for it. In the future, perhaps it's best to affirmatively set aside the food for your husband and daughter and yourself, labeled so there can be no confusion, and then let him eat. Also, there are some diseases that either lead to extreme hunger or prevent the full cues from registering in your brain or body. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for not letting my inheritance be used for my step and half siblings when I'm not going to college? I, 17-year-old male, won't be going to college after high school, and instead I'm going to learn a trade. I feel like it works better for my skills and generally would be a better job for me. My mom isn't super happy about it, but she knows college has been pushed on me for almost 2 years, and my mind hasn't changed. So she's accepted that she won't change my mind, and nobody will. Here's why my post is here. My dad died when I was 6. When he was 9, my grandmom, his mom, died, and it was due to medical negligence/malpractice, and my grandpa, uncle, and dad were awarded compensation, a huge amount too, for her death. Granddad split it between my dad and uncle. He was working and received Social Security benefits for them because grandmom died and he knew she'd want them to be taken care of above everything. When my dad realized he was sick, he made sure that money would go to me, his only kid. He set it up in a trust and left my granddad and uncle in charge of it. The money is a lot, like I could easily be free of debt going to college with it and have some left over if I was smart about it. My mom knew about the money but cannot access it. My mom has been married to her husband for 9 years. My parents were separated when dad died, by the way. Her husband has a son who's a year younger than me and has a medical condition. My mom also has 2 kids with her husband / my half-siblings. Because of my stepbrother's medical condition and his mom not being in his life or his mom's family, they don't really have any savings for his college anymore. They had to spend it for some medical stuff, and my half-siblings have nothing either. My mom and her husband think that since I have the money and won't be using it for college, I should give it to my stepbrother and half-siblings and let them pay it back if I insist, but that I could also just give it to them as a way to help them with their futures and be a good brother. I said no, and I told them I wouldn't change my mind. Mom asked why, and I said it's my inheritance from my dad. I could buy a house with it. I could protect my future with it. I could save it for my future kids. But I don't want to risk it not being paid back when it was Dad's way of securing my future. She told me he'd want me to do this, and I asked her if she really thinks he'd want the money he got from losing his mom to be used on random kids that aren't me. She told me they're not random to me, so yes. She believes he'd want me to be a good brother. She told me I should really give it more consideration. Am I the jerk? So, even at the cost of potentially being excommunicated from that side of the family, I probably would not be giving them the money? Like, I'm sorry, but this money fell down through inheritance all the way to OP. OP has incentive from their dad's wishes to kind of use it for themselves, and it would be incredibly advantageous for OP in their life to have this resource. Not just give it up just because somebody else thinks you don't deserve it because you didn't go to the college of their dreams. Like I said, if it were up to me, I'd be keeping that money. B. Jackson commented, "Not the jerk. Congratulations on protecting yourself and your future. You have considered your mother's request and your answer is still no. If you lend the money, you won't be able to get it back without suing them. If they can borrow from you, then they can borrow educational funds in other ways. You shouldn't be their only source of funding. They will take your money and pretend like it was a gift. Make sure your grandfather and uncle are aware of the situation and your plans so your mother can't go behind your back. Unfortunately, sometimes people act this way when large amounts of money are involved. Good luck with trade school and your future." OP responded saying, "That's my worry too, or if my mom and her husband break up, then who will pay me back because she might pay back my half-siblings' amounts, but I don't think she'd pay back what my stepbrother would get, and there's no saying it wouldn't need to be spent on more medical stuff, so it could be gone and they'll say I'm selfish for wanting it back when it went on his health. They would never let my mom have the money, but they know, so it's not something I worry about." Our next story is, am I the jerk for embarrassing my friends by correcting my drink order? I, 22-year-old female, don't drink for personal reasons, but I love the taste of pina coladas. I recently went out to eat at Outback Steakhouse with 2 friends and saw pina koala on the menu. It was described as a cocktail version of a pina colada with a koala on it. When the server came, I asked if they could possibly make a virgin pina koala, and she said she'd ask the bar. A few minutes later, someone from the bar came over and said, "Here's a virgin version of the drink," and put it on the table. It was not a pina koala. This was a tall pink drink with a koala rubber duck on it. I later figured out this was their other koala-themed drink. She had already left before I could process that I got the wrong drink. I looked at it again and said aloud to my friends, "This isn't a pina colada." One of my friends responded with, "It's okay, at least you got a drink." I shook my head and expressed that I ordered a pina colada and that's what I was expecting. My other friends shook their head in response saying, "They went through the pain of making the drink virgin for you, just be grateful." I said that I was going to correct them because it wasn't what I ordered. My friends went back and forth with me for a while, insisting that it would be completely rude and unnecessary of me to correct them. They even suggested I just try the drink and only correct them if the drink was awful. I'll admit, I did try a sip of the drink and it was good in its own right, but I wanted a pina colada. They kept reiterating how the bar went through the trouble of going out of their way to make a virgin drink for me, so I should just be happy they even did that. Finally, the server arrived and I corrected my order, ignoring my friends. The server was very kind and apologized and had the bar make me a virgin pina koala. My friends were so annoyed and irritated with me the whole night. They insisted I was being a Karen and should have just stayed quiet. They said I embarrassed them with my entitlement. I just continued to ignore them. The end of the night was awkward and I've been thinking about this incident for a few days now. I normally struggle to correct my orders, so being able to do so was a big step for me, but I still wonder if my friends were right and I should have been grateful to receive anything. Am I the jerk? So I really don't think OP's the jerk here. I think it's a very normal thing in any kind of hospitality setting where if they give you the wrong order, you're allowed to say, hey, this wasn't what I ordered, even if it was sort of a specialty order that they got wrong. It's not like you're here purposely trying to make the server's life harder. Unless that server or the bartender is having an especially crappy or overloaded day, I'm assuming if you be graceful or kind about it, they're not going to be like, oh, this Karen, making my job just so darn difficult. Why can't you just shut up when I serve you the wrong thing? East Parking 8340 commented, not the jerk. It's not entitlement, it's getting what you ordered. Making a virgin drink is no more complex than making one with alcohol in it. It's all about liquids and proportions. I guarantee you that if they had ordered steak and they got a bowl of soup, or if they ordered a Dyson from Amazon and got an AliExpress special, they'd have said something fairly robust about it. I really wonder whether someone changed your order to include one with alcohol and you ruined their prank? If you didn't know how this was meant to taste, you would find it harder to know if it was virgin. There's too much emotion involved for it to be solely about sorting out an incorrect order. As long as you didn't shriek like a tea kettle, you're good. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling a woman she shouldn't be at a dog party? I was at a dog costume contest in a public park. There were hundreds of people and dogs. In the middle of everything, there was a woman sitting on a bench with her dog. Whenever any dog or person got near, she would yell at them to get away and she would yank her dog back. The dog kept trying to make friends and would stare longingly at the other dogs who were playing with each other, and she would keep aggressively tugging him and scolding people. After a while, I said, you know, there's kind of a big dog party going on. If you don't want your dog around people or dogs, perhaps this isn't the right place for you. She said, I don't know what you want from me. I have a right to be here. I wasn't questioning her rights, just her judgment. Am I the jerk? Edit, it was an official park-sponsored party. She would get angry when people and dogs were simply in the vicinity of her dog, not necessarily even interacting. Most of the time, she wasn't even paying attention, just scrolling on her phone. Edit 2, a lot of people are saying, the dog might be aggressive to justify her behavior. If that's the case, why would you bring your dog to a dog party? I don't really think OP's the jerk here personally. I feel like OP was every bit as snippy as this lady was. It's not even like OP was saying, you need to go home, you need to get out of here. They're just pointing out, hey, lady, there's a dog party literally going on. How can you sit there with your dog and snap that people and gasp dogs are getting close? Just the way you are commented, I feel like the folks voting her the jerk are missing the point. She wasn't actively training her dog. She was sitting in the middle of the event on her phone. Owners with dogs weren't just walking over to play with their dog, they were just in the vicinity, which likely means simply walking by. Could they have been too close? Sure, but it was a park-sponsored event, which likely means it was busy, and there's only so much walking space during busy events. OP even said there were hundreds of people and dogs. If anything, she's a jerk to her dog if she was attempting to train the dog to be around other dogs. Why be at a big event? Why not choose a less busy dog park to let your dog get used to 1 to 2 dogs at a time instead of a park full of them? Plus, training involves the owner to actually be interacting with their own dog, which she wasn't doing, not the jerk. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling daughter-in-law I won't watch her older kids so she could take the baby on vacation? My son and daughter-in-law have 3 kids, 2 girls and a boy. The girls are 3 and almost 1, and her son is 4. I've always believed she favors the youngest. With the older 2, she was going back to work at 12 weeks, had them in daycare all day, every day, didn't breastfeed, and just seemed disinterested in becoming a parent. It's night and day with this baby though. She quit her job so the baby wouldn't be in daycare, she's into attachment parenting, refused to even try formula for this one, and refuses to go anywhere without her. They're going to move for my son's job and are taking the weekend to look at houses and explore the area. My daughter-in-law asked if I could take the older two, and when I asked about the baby, she said the baby would be coming with them. I asked why she was taking the baby and not the older two, and she said it would be so much easier. She doesn't have to worry about the kids running around the stage houses, getting bored after touring 5 houses, getting tired, etc., and that the baby will happily stay in the carrier or in her stroller. She also mentioned that the baby has never been away from her, and she doesn't want to put her through 2 nights away from mom yet. She also wants to take the baby out, and she thinks it'll be easier to check out the kid places with only 1 kid. I refused. I told her that I think it's favoritism to take 1 kid on vacation and leave the others at home, especially when she already has a history of treating her better than the other kids. The other kids would love to go on this trip and they won't understand why their mom left them but brought their sister. She says I have no right to criticize her parenting and that she does not have a favorite. I refused to budge and told her I would take all of them or none. She has a friend watching the older two now and told her that I'm not allowed to see the kids this weekend because she thinks I'll talk about her to the kids and cause problems between her and the kids. My son thinks she's overreacting, but he also thinks I shouldn't have said anything because I know she had PPD with the first 2 and she feels guilty about not being a good mom to the first 2. Am I the jerk for telling her she's favoring the baby and refusing to watch the older 2 so she could take the baby on a vacation? So I think there's multiple things that do make OP the jerk here. First of all, it's this constant framing of this being a vacation. They're going around looking at houses and exploring the area they're potentially going to move into. That's considered a vacation? I don't think it's a vacation for most people. Second of all, I very much buy the logic that the older kids are going to be a lot harder to juggle when you're going around looking at these houses, checking out the local area, and just having 1 young stroller-bound kid is going to be way easier. I completely think that is sound logic and not like a favoritism thing. Clearly, OP thinks house shopping and looking at the general area is like some kind of vacation that the kids are ultimately losing out on. This isn't a trip to Disney World. This is a bunch of checking for mold under the cabinets, seeing if water works in every room, where the local hospital is, and whether or not there's a creeper at every park nearby that they can take their kids, not a vacation. Mom4 commented, "You're the jerk. They're not taking the baby on vacation. They're going to look at houses, which is a chore, in their new location. The baby is breastfed, so how did you plan to keep the baby for the weekend? And the baby has not been away from mom, so it would have been miserable. What did your refusal and tirade accomplish? Well, you aren't allowed to see your grandkids. You missed out on time with the older 2, and since they're moving, I doubt they'll be making a lot of special trips in the future to see you. Also, doing something different with the newest baby versus the older 2 is not showing favoritism or treating the baby better. Daughter-in-law realized she would rather be at home or that childcare would be too expensive for 3 kids. She struggled to breastfeed the older 2 for whatever reason and finds the 3rd easier. Given how judgmental you are, I find it unlikely that they will continue a relationship with you. Our next story is, am I the jerk for not getting rid of my cats for my pregnant best friend? I, 22-year-old female, have lived alone since the beginning of this year in a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo. I have 1 cat who's my pet, but I also volunteer with a local cat rescue organization. It's fairly often that I temporarily foster cats and kittens anywhere from just 1 night to 2 weeks at most, until we clear them to be placed in our shelter or with another foster or they're adopted. I usually take in 1 foster at a time, but at times it's 2 if they're siblings, bonded, etc. Recently this summer, my best friend Christy, 23-year-old female, moved in with me because she was on very bad/hostile terms with her mom and stepdad who she lived with, and it was safer for her to move out. I of course offered her to stay with me, and she's been in the spare bedroom since. However, last month, Christy found out she's pregnant from her boyfriend. They have a plan to get their own place ASAP, she says, but I truly don't mind if she stays here as long as she needs. Given that she's pregnant, when she told her mom last week, her mom wanted to come over and talk things over. So she came here on Thursday and they talked privately for about 2 hours. When they came out, it seemed like it was a good chat and they were more relaxed. But her mom kind of turned her attention towards me and said, "If Christy's going to be living here, you need to do something about the cats." I asked what she meant, and she mentioned toxoplasmosis, the litter boxes, number of cats here, etc., and started getting an attitude towards me and said, "You guys should have thought of this already." I let her know we did actually, and there's an extremely low to no risk of toxoplasmosis. I only have one cat, my own, in the main house, who doesn't go into Christy's room. Christy also has zero obligations or responsibilities for my cats. I let her know that the minute she moved in. All litter boxes are cleaned minimum twice daily and aren't even anywhere near Christy. My cat's litter box is kept in the garage, she has a cat door, and any foster cats I have are kept in my master bathroom. It's a large bathroom and adapted to be safe for a temporary foster. The only interaction Christy has is if she happens to be in the living room, hallway, or kitchen with my cat at the same time, so contact is extremely limited. I also want to add, all cats I foster are up to date with vaccines, spayed and neutered, and exclusively indoor cats only. After explaining all this to Christy's mom, I told her that at most I would be willing to possibly limit the fosters I bring in, but I will absolutely not be getting rid of my cat. She told me, "Well, yours is the biggest risk here." Also, she tried to suggest that I should stop volunteering with cats altogether until Christy moved out or until the baby is born. Christy tried interrupting her mom to calm down because she kept going on about how I'm being selfish, I'm not realizing that she's carrying another life now, not considering the risks, etc. But given their relationship, she was very on edge with her mom, which I understand. I love my best friend, but I will not be getting rid of my pet in my own home that was here before she was. I'm willing to adapt and limit fosters, but I genuinely do not think I'm risking anyone's health here and don't want to stop volunteering. Am I the jerk? So I actually have heard of toxoplasmosis, and I do know that it can be concerning, especially for pregnancy. It's basically a parasite that's often found in cats' poo. But of course, that requires the cat to have picked it up from somewhere, and for a cat to get toxoplasmosis, it's either picked up from another cat's poo or eating small, disgusting animals that already had it themselves. I completely understand it being an actual concern, but I think if it's handled thoughtfully, it really shouldn't be a realistic problem. Granted, just because you clean the litter box doesn't necessarily mean that it wouldn't still be transmissible. I just think in the current setup, with minimal contact and hygiene kept at a very respectable level, it shouldn't be an actual realistic concern. As thoughtless as the mom's trying to make OP out to be, it sounds like OP's being pretty thoughtful. Sick of Driving 007 commented, "Not the jerk. As long as she's not scooping the litter boxes, she should be fine. If her mom is so concerned, maybe she should step up and be a better parent to her daughter so she can live with her." Our next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to give up my home and move closer to my daughter and granddaughter? I, 44, live in Alaska with my wife, 43. Our daughter, 22, and her husband, 24, live in the lower 48, and she's having her first child in a few months, our first grandchild. We own our own home here in Alaska, and I have an excellent career with a unique schedule, so I could live in the lower 48 and fly back and forth to Alaska every 2 weeks. My wife works remotely and can work from anywhere. My wife and I had planned to move down there and buy a duplex next door to my daughter. After much consideration, I told my wife today that I'm not doing that. She's devastated because she feels stuck in Alaska and is far from her family. Worth noting, it was her idea to move here from California, where I had a successful business that I sold to move us up here 10 years ago. I'm happy to travel back and forth as often as we like to visit, but I'm keeping my home here. I don't want to live there, next door to my daughter. I raised her to be able to build and live her own life, and I don't want to follow her around. I built my life, I want to live it. The bulk of my wife's family lives within an hour drive of where our daughter lives. I'd be leaving my dad in poor health behind in Alaska. I don't want to do that either. I'm not opposed to buying the duplex. I can afford to own it and my home in Alaska, but I told my wife to come and go between there and here as often as she likes. But this is my home and this is where I'm going to stay. I think unless this was mission critical for OP to be there to support their daughter and they genuinely should or want to, maybe you could say OP's being selfish, but OP's really just living their own adult life when their adult child will be off living theirs elsewhere. Much like many kids grow up to be adults and move out and want their parents to stop following them around, sometimes parents want to not have to follow their kids around. IKC3 commented, "Not the jerk. Has anyone asked your daughter if she wants you that close? And if she does and you can afford, buy it and go when you want. Same with your wife. The only jerkish part is if you just flat out told your wife no without discussing it. Two people get to make the decision." Our next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to mitigate my adult children's arguments and calling my daughter childish for expecting me to? My daughters Lizzie and Maggie are polar opposites. The girls have never gotten along, and forcing them together would only result in fights. I made them learn to be civil while doing small things together while being civil, but otherwise made sure they had their space. Lizzie in particular has always been a headstrong and not afraid to speak her mind. I always try to teach her about appropriate ways to speak her mind and when/who to have tact with. But as I said, Lizzie is a very opinionated person, and even with the counselor's recommendations, my efforts had little impact. Lizzie has recently developed a rude attitude towards family. Our family does not find it cute, and most members will simply tell her to leave or not reply back. When I brought it up to her, Lizzie just made statements to the effect of, "I'm an adult, I can say what I want. Because she pays her own bills, there's nothing more I can do." Lizzie came calling me recently because she'd been making mean comments about Maggie, and Maggie responded by taking a jab at Lizzie. Lizzie claimed her comments were a joke, but Maggie took it too far. Her sister can't be saying these things, and I should talk to Maggie about it. I refused and reiterated what I've already said before to Lizzie. She's an adult and can say what she wants, but when you try to start something, don't be surprised when the other person bites just as hard back. Maybe others would bite their tongues when she was a kid, but people won't hold back anymore now that she's an adult. Lizzie tried to say that Maggie's comments were out of line, but I told her that asking me to get involved is just childish. They're both living on their own and in their 20s. Far too old for me to be mitigating their arguments like children. If they choose to interact with one another, they need to learn to work out their disputes like adults. Lizzie is still upset at me, saying Maggie took it too far and what she said was beyond any line. But as I said, this behavior is childish, and both my girls have proven through their careers and independence that they're above it. Neither are under my roof anymore, and it's not my responsibility to mitigate their fights anymore. Am I the jerk? OP's not the jerk here, and I think absolutely OP's in the right. This isn't OP intervening over which kid gets to play with the Mega Bloks today. This is OP as an adult watching their two adult children who live on their own bicker at each other, saying, "I'm not getting in the middle of this," which is completely fair. Legitimate SA221 commented, "Not the jerk. Seems like Lizzie's stuck in a mean girl phase, and she's going to find out fairly quickly that other adults, be they friends, family, or strangers, aren't going to put up with her crap. If she doesn't curb her attitude, it's most likely going to go beyond poor familial relationships. She's going to lose jobs, opportunities, friendships, romantic relationships, etc. It seems that your other daughter's finally giving her a taste of her own medicine has had more of an impact than ignoring her or asking her to leave. Good for Maggie. Maybe y'all should be giving some of that same energy to Lizzie. Sometimes they need to experience what they're inflicting to gain a crumb of empathy." OP responded saying, "Mean girl is a good way to describe Lizzie's attitude towards family. She has a successful career based on communication and conflict resolution skills. I don't understand why she doesn't use those skills when interacting with family." This next story is, am I the jerk for going off on someone after they refuse to move their car blocking my driveway? Basically, I noticed this person sitting in their car in front of my driveway blocking it. Since they were in their car and the car was turned on, I gave them some time. About 5 minutes go by and I get a package delivery. I go out there to grab my package. The person in question looks at me and continues to go back to texting on their phone. At this point, I thought for sure they would leave, but they don't. I wait a few more minutes and finally I go out there and say, "Can you move your car please? You're blocking my driveway." Immediately they come back with an attitude. "Do you need to go somewhere? I ain't bothering you." To which I say, no, but there's plenty of street parking available and it's illegal to block a driveway. She comes back and starts yelling at me, I ain't bothering you, bench, and swearing at me. At this point, I'm ticked she doubled down when she was in the wrong, and I was polite at first and quite honestly was not in the mood for BS today, so I came back hard and yelled right back, calling her a bench too, and told her I was gonna call the cops. She finally drove away when I faked a call to the cops, called my fiance instead, and I flipped her off. Realistically, I guess I am feeling mainly guilty about losing my cool. Am I the jerk? I don't think OP's the jerk here. If they're living in a place where blocking the driveway is genuinely illegal, then hey, all's fair, right? And also, if you don't know this person, you haven't seen this person around, do you really want some random stranger in a car sitting in your driveway or sitting just outside your driveway anyway? Listen, I don't know what the heck you're doing there, but literally go anywhere else but right outside my driveway. Yes, I'm turning into the old man from Monster House. Rocalair62 commented, I would also take a pic of the car and tag for future reference. Previous neighbor had similar situation, but they came back and vandalized a car and garage door, but on security camera. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy Am I the Jerk Here story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.